All right, namaste everyone. I'm really sorry that we had to start this late. The city traffic has gone really bad because of some construction of flyovers, and since it is India, the things they are not executed or implemented as planned. Okay, so it causes a lot of stress. I was supposed to get back by 8:15 and now it is 8:47, so it's it's more than half an hour delay. I'm really sorry about that. So anyways, we will not keep you for long because I've been late in starting the class. But thank you everyone for having the patience to bear this thing. Okay, I know it's really frustrating because I myself would have got really frustrated if something like that would have happened with me. Okay, so just a minute, let the system start. Okay, so let us start our our class in the usual way of starting with the Shanti mantra. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunakatu Saha Viryankar Vavahai Tejasvi Nadadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. So last class, I had discussed a technique on on judging the the first lord, that means the position of the ascendant lord. Okay, and today we proceed further into as we've already taken the deep dive. Then today we'll also look at something which is called as the predictive use of significators. Okay, so I've already taught you one technique of predictive astrology as to how to judge the intelligence of the native. Okay, so now let's look at the use of karakas in the field of in the field of astrological predictions. Okay, so the karaka is very important. Why? Because the karaka for the house gives results when events pertaining to a house are being judged. Okay, for example, if you want to know about the mother, okay, you not only look at the fourth, you not only look at the fourth house and its lord, you also look at the moon because it is the karaka for the fourth house. Okay, and the moon is also the significator for the mother, that means it is also the karaka for mother. So the condition of the moon must also be thoroughly examined, that is. Okay, similarly, if if you look for if you look for the events pertaining about the brother, the younger brother, in that case, not only you should look at the third house and its lord, but you should also look at Mars. Okay, because Mars is the karaka for the third house. All right, and then there are other certain rules that must be followed with respect to the karakas. Okay, so suppose you are you're examining the 9th, 10th and the 11th houses. So these are rules that have been laid down by Parashara. Okay, these are rules that have been laid down by Parashara. So they are very standard operating procedures with regards to Vedic astrology, and I've not modified this according to my own understanding of it. I'm just stating it directly. Okay, so if you are studying the 9th house, the 10th house and the 11th house from the lagna, that means from the ascendant, you must also, to come to a prediction, you must also evaluate or examine the 9th, 10th and the 11th house from the sun. Okay, this is very important. If you are judging the 9th house from the lagna, you should also judge the 9th house from the sun. Okay, wherever the sun is placed, look at the 9th house from it. That will also give you an idea about the bhagya of the native. Okay, again, if you study the 1st, 2nd, 4th, 9th and 10th houses from the lagna, you should also consider the 1st, that means the moon sign, the 2nd, 4th, 9th and 10th from the moon. Okay, why? Because the moon is the karaka for the mind. Okay, so these houses relate to the mind. All right. Similarly, if you are studying the third house from the Lagna, you must also study the third house from Mars. Okay. If you are studying the sixth house from the Lagna, you should also study the sixth house from Mercury. Okay. What is the sixth house? The sixth house is disease, enemy, maternal uncle, and so on. So not only you should study the sixth house from the Lagna for these things, you should also study the sixth house from Mercury. Okay. Similarly, for progeny, that means for children, you should consider the fifth house from Lagna and also the fifth house from Jupiter. Okay, this is for males. For females, you look at the ninth house from the Lagna and also the ninth house from Jupiter. Okay. Similarly, for spouse, you should consider the seventh house from the Lagna as well as the seventh house from Venus. Okay, because Venus is the Karaka for the seventh house. All right. And similarly, whenever you are examining you're examining factors like death, longevity, etc. Not only you should consider the eighth house from the Lagna, you should also consider the eighth house from, Saturn. Similarly, when you are timing diseases for the native, you should not only consider the 12th house from the Lagna, you should also consider the 12th house from Saturn. Okay. So the principle is that whatever these houses are indicating, all right, whatever the eighth house or the sixth house or the fifth house is indicating, these houses must also be judged from the Karaka of those houses. Okay. So that is the underlying principle behind this. All right. Now we come to a a very important point or a very important understanding of a topic. It is called the cusp of a horoscope. Okay, the cusp of houses of a horoscope. How to understand this? All right. So what do we know about the horoscope? The horoscope is a graphic representation of the signs of the zodiac and all the planets located in these signs. Okay. And what is the Lagna? The Lagna is that sign which rises at the eastern horizon at any given moment of time. Okay. So this Lagna is the beginning point or the first house of the horoscopic chart. All right. And then the other signs represent the next signs of the horoscope. All right. So Nadi astrology is different. For Nadi astrology, there is no rising sign. All the houses are the same. Okay. So as I said, the first house or the rising sign is labeled as a Lagna or the ascendant. And this is the most important sign since all subsequent astrological exercises are based on this, on this particular first house. Okay. And, we know that the earth rotates once in 24 hours on its axis from west to east. And this rotation, it causes one apparent revolution of the zodiac around it. Okay. So what happens is that all the 12 signs of the zodiac, they rise in the eastern horizon, they reach the midheaven, set at the western horizon, and again proceed to their starting point once in 24 hours. Okay. So by this logic, the ascendant or the Lagna is that specific degree of the zodiac, which just let me silence my phone. So by this logic, the Lagna is that specific degree of the zodiac which rises at one particular moment of time. Okay, it's a still picture of the zodiac. Okay, it's a snapshot of the zodiac along with the planets. All right, and the horoscope is something that constitutes the houses, the 12 houses, and with all the planets in it. All right, so the planets make the horoscope very, very dynamic. Okay, the planets make the horoscope very, very dynamic, and that is the reason you come to remedies. Okay, because the planets are moving, so the results given by those moving planets will also never be static. Okay, that is the reason astrology, or rather Vedic astrology, has a very special place for remedies. All right, so the Lagna, the degree of the Lagna represents the midpoint of the first house. Okay, so what happens is, since it's the midpoint of the first house, or rather the midpoint of any house, there would be a part of the house. Suppose a house will be of 30 degrees, so there would be a part of the house. If you consider the midpoint, we arrive at 15 degrees. So a part of the house will precede this point and a part of the house will succeed this point. Okay, so this is a speciality of Vedic astrology, because if you have experience with Western astrology, the cusp of a house is considered as the starting point of that house. Okay, but in case of Vedic astrology, A part of the house precedes the midpoint and another part succeeds the midpoint. Okay, so this is a difference. Okay, and this difference is very, very important. All right. And while studying the, while studying the horoscope, while studying the snapshot of the zodiac in the form of a horoscope, we also come to understand the importance of time. Okay. And since the zodiac is constantly moving around the earth, its angular position and that of the rashis and the nakshatras attached on it, it is, the zodiac is constantly changing. Okay. And it is this regular change from moment to moment which differentiates one horoscope from the other, and therefore one person from the other. Okay. And you will understand the signification of how, how two people born at the same time have different destinies when we study the Vargas or the divisional charts. Okay. So this is very, very important, that it is very, very important rather that, while casting the horoscope, the timing of the birth should be very, very accurate. Okay. It is very, very essential that if you want to judge a horoscope, you have to give a proper time of birth to the astrologer. Okay, otherwise, the entire exercise becomes meaningless. And birth time rectification is a, it's a separate topic altogether. But what happens is, if any good astrologer is, is looking at a horoscope, he or she will, should, or he or she will do birth time rectification. It is the short form for birth time rectification is BTR. So a good astrologer will always invariably do birth time rectification before actually going with the readings, going ahead with the readings. Okay. And you can learn it too. Okay, once we proceed sufficiently on on this path, or down this path rather, we will start a course on birth time rectification, which is very, very important. Okay, so this birth time rectification is very, very important if the casting of the horoscope has to be correct. Okay, and there are various ways of recording the time of birth. Okay, so the ancient Indian method of recording the time, it considered the beginning of the day from the moment of sunrise. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so the ancient Indian method of recording the birth time, it considered the beginning of any day from the moment of sunrise till the next sunrise. Okay, and this is something that you will consider while reading charts. Okay, suppose a person is born at is born at say 12 a.m. You'll consider the previous day, not the next day. Okay, so this is something that you'll always do while reading charts. All right. And the more widely used method is the modern method. Okay, which recognizes the passage of the sun across the meridian or midheaven to correspond with the local noon, and across the nadir or the lower meridian to correspond with the local midnight. Okay, so this time reckoning is actually done from midnight to midnight, but this is not something that we will follow in Vedic astrology. Okay, so for Monday is the time of sunrise. Suppose the sun is rising at say 5:20 a.m. in the morning on Monday. So even if the birth is happening at say 1 a.m., it is not considered to be Tuesday. It is still Monday till the next sunrise. Okay, so from one sunrise to the next sunrise, we consider it to be one day. That is the Vedic method of time reckoning. Okay, and this is something that we will follow while reading charts. Okay, so this should clear the misconception as to when you were born. Some of you might have this misconception, right? I was born on at say 12 a.m. of Tuesday, and my day of my day of birth should be Wednesday, but no, it is Tuesday. Okay, and the day of birth has a very important, it plays a very important role in allowing you to judge the horoscope, because the Vara Lord, the day of birth, has a very, very important part in predictive astrology. And I don't have anyone amongst you who has done the Panchanga course, but in that Panchanga course, I had actually illustrated this thing, okay, on how to understand the Vara Lord. All right. And then there is something called there is something called standard time, then local time, and zonal time. Okay, so the time we record time we usually record time by a watch or a clock. Okay, and what the watch or a clock does is that it generally follows something which is called the standard time of a place. Okay, and standard time is nothing but local time, okay, within of a particular place or within a country, which has been considered as a reference point for for all time reckoning for that country. Okay, and the standard time has a relation with the Greenwich Mean Time, which is called the GMT, but then there is a local mean time which is called LMT. Okay, I'm using these terms. I'm giving out the abbreviations because some softwares will show you the time in abbreviated form. Okay, GMT means the Greenwich Mean Time, and the local mean time is denoted by LMT. Okay, for 0-degree longitude. And places east of Greenwich are ahead of Greenwich Mean Time, and those west of Greenwich are behind Greenwich Mean Time in their reckoning of time. So this is something that can be understood, okay, while setting time in the software, right? And we must also understand that time reckoning is a function of the rotation of the Earth, and one rotation in 24 hours is equivalent to almost 360 degree of longitude. Okay, so what happens is since one rotation corresponds to 360 degree of longitude, so each 15 degrees of longitude will correspond to 1 hour of time. Okay, or each degree will correspond to around 4 minutes of time. Okay, and in India, as the standard time is reckoned from a place 82.5 degrees east of Greenwich, which is at a rate of 4 minutes per degree of longitude. Okay, and this time it corresponds to 5 hours and 30 minutes of time. So being east of Greenwich, the Indian Standard Time, which is denoted by IST, is 5.5 hours ahead of the Greenwich Mean Time. Okay, so that is the reason while calculating the chart, the time is always set to plus east 5.30. All right, and you don't have to be, you don't have to be confused about how to find out the time. Suppose the chart is, most of the astrology softwares, they will come auto-tuned with the place where you are using them. Okay, for example, if you're using Parashara's light, it will actually have an auto-tuning with the, with the Indian Standard Time. But suppose you have to cast a chart for someone who is, who is staying in a place called Africa, like Ghana or something, you just find out the UTC for Ghana. Okay, just type UTC for Ghana, or maybe UTC for, say, you're trying to cast the chart for someone living in Paris. So you'll type UTC for Paris in Google, find out find out how far ahead or how behind is this standard time. The local standard time is how far or how behind from the Greenwich Mean Time, and you'll easily get an idea of it. Okay, so you don't have to do it manually. It is very much available on the internet. Okay, but then there are some very large countries like the US, which use different time zones or zones separated generally by 15 degree of longitude. Okay, and each zone has its own zonal time, which is like a standard time for that particular zone. Okay, so as I said, in a country like USA or Russia, there may be several standard times. Okay, and as I said, it is very, very essential that the astrologer must have a good understanding of these time zones, so as to draw the proper astrological chart without mistake. Okay, and then there is another issue that comes up with timing. It is the issue of daylight saving time. Okay, some countries also call it summertime. All right, so what happens is that in certain countries the clocks, they get advanced generally by 1 hour during the summer months. All right, so one must be aware of the actual days of the year when changes from normal to the summertime and vice versa are affected. Okay, and if such details are omitted by the astrologer, then then lots of mistakes can occur in the in the making of a particular horoscope or in the analysis of a particular horoscope. Okay, so is this part clear regarding time? So since we're studying time, what it also means that whenever you are studying jyotish, automatically you are actually doing a remedy for Surya. Okay, whenever you're studying jyotish, we're automatically doing a remedy for Surya, because Surya governs time. All right. Okay, so what is the data that are, what are the data that are required for casting a horoscopic chart? Okay, so the first thing is that you must have the date of birth for the native. Then there must be a standard time of birth or a local time of birth. Okay, then there must be a place of birth. Okay, it indicates the latitude and longitude of a place where the native was born. Okay, and why you need this, why you need the above, why you need this data is because you need to obtain the correct moment of time so that an accurate horoscopic chart can be constructed for a given location. Okay, and you can cast the horoscope using a good astrology software, but then those who want to cast a horoscope in the traditional way, then for them certain equipments are also needed. Okay, so number one is the ephemeris. Okay, it is the ephemeris of the for the appropriate year of birth. Okay, so in India it is known as Panchika. Okay, in India it is known as Panchika, but what an ephemeris is that it is an astronomical almanac detailing the daily position of the sun, the moon, the planets, and the stars. Okay, in the West, Raphael's ephemeridis are generally used as the standard ephemeridis. Okay, and these give these materials, they give the sayana or the tropical position of the planets. Okay, but in India the ephemeris is known as the Lahiri Indian ephemeris, and it is based on the Chitrapaksha Ayanamsha. Okay, it this is what is followed in India, and it gives the Niryana or the sidereal positions of the planets, which are better suited for Vedic astrology. Okay, and Lahiri's ephemeris or the ephemerids are available for each year as well as in the form of condensed ephemeris. Okay, so if someone wants to know the local name for it, it is known as Panjika. Okay, then there is the table of ascendants that you need for casting a horoscope properly. So these are ready-made tables which give data about calculating the degree of the ascendant in various latitudes. Okay, so in India, Lahiri's ephemeris tables are based on the Niryana system, and these are very popular and they are recommended by most astrologers. But then any tables which are based on the Sayana system are equally good. Okay, and what is the difference between Sayana and the Niryana system? Okay, what is the difference between these two systems? The difference is that of the Ayanamsha. Okay, it is only of the Ayanamsha, and it is quite in order to work out the ascendant on the on the Sayana basis and subtract the Ayanamsha from it to obtain the Niryana values. Okay, just to give you an example, suppose according to Western astrology, your sun is in Cancer. Suppose you are born on say the 5th of July. Okay, according to Western astrology, your sun will be in Cancer. Okay, but according to Vedic astrology, since I gave you the method of subtracting one from the other, so the sun would actually come to Gemini. Okay, suppose according to Western astrology, if you were born on the 1st of August, the sun would be in Leo. Okay, but according to Vedic astrology, if you're born on the 1st of August, the sun will actually be in Cancer. Okay, so this is the difference that is there. Okay, while trying to understand one form from the other. Okay, and then there is a gazette for finding the latitude and longitude of the place of birth. Okay, and this is also a table which is as important as the ascendant table. All right. Okay. Just give me a break for a couple of minutes. I'm just coming back for a brief time. Just give me a break for a couple of minutes. Okay, so next we come to the rules for calculating the ascendant. Okay, so I know this is going to be it's going to be boring because we have the software, and the software gives instant results on how a birth chart is cast. Okay, but since we are doing the foundational course, I want each one of you to know how to do it manually. Okay, there are certain astrologers who are charging around 10,000 to teach this. Okay, so manual calculation is very, very important if you want to be devoted to this subject. Okay, so I'll not begin with the examples today. What I'll do is that I'll just list out the steps as to how to calculate the birth chart manually, and then in the next class onwards, when next Sunday, we'll have just have your pen and notebook ready, and I'll teach you how to calculate it manually with a few live examples. I'll take one example of birth in India, and I'll take one example of a birth in a foreign country. Okay, so I'll just list out the steps today, and don't have to worry if you cannot make much sense out of it. But once we take an example, or once we take a couple of examples to do it, then it would be pretty much clear. Okay, So what are the steps to calculate the ascendant? All right. So number one, we have to find the local mean time, the place of birth. Okay. So, from the place of birth that is available as a standard time, for example, Indian Standard Time or any zonal time, you have to determine the local mean time of birth or the local time of birth for the place in question. Okay. And that is determined by applying the correction as I mentioned. All right. So if the place in question falls to the east of the meridian or to the east of the meridian of reference for a country, then what you will do is that you will add 4 minutes for each degree of difference of longitude between the place and the reference point. And it will be vice versa for the west. That means if it falls in the west, you will subtract at the rate of 4 minutes per degree of difference of longitude. Okay. And the ascendant or the rising sign is based on the local time and not on the standard or zonal time for a country. Okay, this is something that you must remember. All right, it is always based on a local time and not on the standard time. Okay, then you have to determine something called sidereal time, and that is determined from the local mean time. Okay, so why do we need to determine sidereal time? It is because all the tables of ascendants, they are based on sidereal time. Okay, and as I've already mentioned, for the same sidereal time for a given latitude, the time of rising, as well as the span of the various signs of the zodiac is the same. Okay. And the value of sidereal time is available from the ephemeris or from the table of ascendants. Okay. And this value is for 12 noon. Okay. Local mean time of each day. Okay. Around autumnal equinox, these values coincide, but around vernal equinox, they are about 12 hours apart. Okay. And I have dealt with this topic extensively in the previous classes. So if you want to refresh it, just go back to the recordings and you will understand that a sidereal day is about 4 minutes shorter than a usual day of 24 hours. Okay. And this difference of 4 minutes for every 24 hours of the clock time amounts to approximately 10 seconds for every 1 hour of the clock. Okay. How we are arriving it? We are dividing, 4 minutes by 24 hours. Okay. So to obtain the sidereal time of birth, you have to first note the sidereal time at 12 noon local mean time. And the next step that you have to consider is whether the local mean time of birth, it falls in the forenoon. What is forenoon? Forenoon is between midnight and 12 noon, or in the afternoon, which is between 12 noon and midnight. So in case of a forenoon birth, you will subtract as many hours and minutes from the value of the sidereal time available from the ephemeris as the birth time is before 12 noon. And in case of an afternoon birth, the vice versa thing happens. Okay, for afternoon birth, you will add as many hours and minutes to the available sidereal time as the birth is after 12 noon. Okay. And in addition to that, what you will do is that you will subtract or add, if it is a forenoon birth, you will subtract, and if it's an afternoon birth, you will add a time period at a rate of approximately 10 seconds for each other from each hour subtracted or added. Okay. So this will give the sidereal time of birth. All right. So I know this is very, very, this must be going over everyone's head. It went over my head too when I was learning this. But with an example, it will become very, very clear. Okay. And then there is the step of working out the ascendant. All right. So on the basis of the sidereal time of birth, the latitude of the place and, the exact degree of the ascendant is found out. Okay. And since the tables of ascendants are based on the Sayana system, an appropriate Ayanamsha has to be subtracted to obtain the Niryana values. Okay. But if you are following Lahiri's tables, they have a Niryana basis as well. Okay. And these tables have been constructed on the basis of the year 1938 AD. Okay. And for periods before or after that year, appropriate corrections in respect of equinoctial precision have to be applied. And what is precision and how to understand it? Again, go back to the previous videos and watch it in full. Okay. Just watch it in full so that you'll have a better understanding of it. All right. Now, interestingly, what happens is that the table of ascendants also gives a table for calculating the 10th house of a horoscope. Okay. And since we are using the sidereal time, okay, so for a given sidereal time, the 10th house cusp is the same for all places falling under same latitude. Okay, peculiar, isn't it? So the 10th house, it represents the upper meridian or the zenith. So because it represents the upper meridian, its cusp will be the same for all places, falling on the same longitude for a given moment of time. Okay, so when we use the sidereal time, the cusp of the 10th house for the given sidereal time of birth will be the same at all places. That means all latitudes and longitudes on the earth. Okay, once the recording is available, just rewind this thing and try to understand what I'm saying. All right, and this is applicable only for the 10th house, not for the other houses. All right, so for the other houses, there are certain standard methods of determining the cusps. Okay, so if you add 6 signs, so 6 signs will be 180 degrees. If you add 6 signs to the cusp of the ascendant, it gives the cusp of the 7th house or the descendant. Okay, 6 signs, that means 180 degrees added to the cusp of the ascendant will give the cusp of the 7th house or the descendant. Okay, again, if you add 6 signs to the cusp of the 10th house, that means if you're adding 180 degrees to the cusp of the 10th house, you will arrive at the cusp of the 4th house, which is the house of Nadir or the lower meridian. Okay, again, 1/3 difference between the ascendant and the 10th house when added to the cusp of the 10th house will give you the cusp of the 11th house. Okay, 1/3 the difference between the ascendant and the 10th house when added to the cusp of the 10th house will give you the cusp of the 11th house. 2/3 of this difference added to the 10th house gives you the cusp of the 12th house. Okay, that means 2/3 of the difference between the ascendant and the 10th house when added to the cusp of the 10th house will give you the cusp of the 12th house. Okay, so 1/3 the difference between the lagna and the 4th house when added to the lagna gives the cusp of the 2nd house. Okay, 1/3 of the difference between the lagna and the 4th house when added to the lagna gives the cusp of the 2nd house. 2/3 of the difference between the lagna and the 4th house when added to the lagna will give you the cusp of the 3rd house. Okay, and the cusp of the 5th, 6th, 8th, and 9th houses are obtained by adding 6 signs. That means 180 degrees respectively to the cusp of the 11th, 12th, 2nd, and 3rd houses. Okay, 5th, 6th, 8th, and 9th house cusps are obtained by adding 6 signs. That means 180 degrees respectively to the cusps of the 11th, 12th, 2nd, and 3rd houses. Okay, so this is heavy stuff. All right, this is very, very heavy stuff that we are dealing with. But as I said, it will become more clear as we deal with the examples. Yes, Anuradha ji, please.
Sir, I wanted to ask about the 10th house thing that you just said. Actually, I have seen what an epimeris looks like, and usually they do have the 10th house, like they say the lagna, and they have the 10th house data in that.
Right.
So I want to understand again why that 10th house, why is it only the 10th that is relevant?
Because the 10th house represents the upper meridian. Okay, this is the place where where the sun is said to be at directly overhead. Okay, it is the zenith. So,
okay, so sir, just so 10th, why do you say that, sir? Because from what I know, if the lagna is the rising sign in the morning, like if let's say for a child who's born at daybreak, like
no. The lagna is just the sign rising in the. It's not in the sign rising in the morning. Okay, it's the sign which was rising at the eastern horizon at the time of birth.
Right, and that is where the sun is placed usually. In a child, no, sir, in a particular month. For example, say if a child is born in say Vaishak, and he is born at daybreak, say early in the morning at daybreak. Sir, his lagna will be Aries and his sun will be in Aries, right? So then around 12 o'clock at midday, it will be in the 4th house.
Right.
So in that sense, like, is that related? Is there a relation between the two?
No, there is no relation. The only thing is, when Vedic astrology was devised by the rishis. Okay. And why it was devised? Because they thought that it would be very, very cumbersome for normal people like us to study all the books on yoga. So whatever can be achieved through yoga, we'll just, they decided that we'll have another branch which will allow people to, to achieve the same things. And that was astrology. That is the reason astrology came up in the first place.
Right.
Okay. Whatever you want to achieve through yoga, you can actually achieve it through astrology. Okay.
So where is that 10th coming in? That's why that is what I'm trying to.
Yeah, the 10th is coming because, Parashara
said.
Yeah, Parashara says that, the zenith is the, if you look at, you just refer to my previous class. You have been you have been there first class, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So just refer to the class when I explained as to, as to why the 10th house is known as a zenith. I think it will be in the 3rd class or something.
No. So that I understood, but why is it in the ephemeris? That's because it's not used in calculations practically, as I've seen.
Yeah, it is not used, but when I take the example, I'll, maybe then you will have a better understanding. Okay.
Because I've seen that when it's cast, usually, that calculation, it never takes the 10th house into account. That particular data is never used. Yeah,
particular data is never used, but it is there, isn't it? It's there.
Yes. That's why I want to know why is it there?
It's there for a reason. Because what happens is, as I said,
is that a correction? Like, is there some kind of a correction that we see?
No, it's not. It's not because of some kind. It's not because of some kind of correction. But as as you already know, the 10th house is the zenith. Okay. And the cusp, which is there for the 10th house, it will be the same for all places. It is my understanding. Okay, it might be skewed as well. I completely, I don't take complete responsibility for this. But because it represents the zenith, the cusp for the 10th house will be the same for all places. Okay, that are falling on the, that at a given moment are falling on the same longitude of, at a given moment of time, they are falling on the same longitude. That is what I understand by it. Otherwise, why it is there?
Sir, I'll check out the books. I'm in Kolkata now, so I will have access to these books over there. I'll see if I can find something.
Because there are certain things that are not explainable. For example, why do the Dashas have this period of time? Why is Mercury Dasha, say, 17 years long? Why is Venus Dasha 20 years long? There is no explanation for this. Okay, so this is just my understanding of it. Or maybe there could be some other reason as well, which I don't know. Okay. So
I will check this aspect because I have access to my father's.
That's what I said.
When he used to do things, he used to do it manually. So I have seen how it is done.
That would be great. It would be great. Maybe you can have a word or discussion with him and then tell all of us as well. Yeah. Okay. So next we come to Bhava Sandhis, or the junctional points of the houses. Okay. So again, these points are to be remembered. Okay, these points are to be remembered. If you know to calculate the junctional points for for one house or for two houses, then it will be the same thing for all the other houses. Okay, so the midway between the cusp of the 12th house and the lagna is the junctional point of the lagna and the 12th house. Midway between the cusp of the 12th house and the lagna is the bhava sandhi of the lagna and the 12th house. All right. Midway between the cusp of the lagna and the cusp of the 2nd house is the junctional point of the lagna and the 2nd house. And you can similarly work out the bhava sandhi for the other houses as well. Okay, and the planets falling in the bhava sandhi, they can make or break a horoscope. All right, so we'll come to that later on when we look into the interpretation principles. Okay. So I'll not proceed beyond this point because it will be too heavy for a few of us. Okay. In the next class, I'll just take an example of how to calculate the the extended manually for a birth in India as well as for a birth in a foreign land. So have your pen and notebooks ready. Okay. And Anuradha ji, if you can ask your father's Guruji on how to, why is this thing used, and maybe get back to us for a better understanding of it. Okay. So I wanted to, as we end the class, I also wanted to share a yogic remedy for, for Saturn and Moon. Okay. So we don't have the time today, but next class, when we have, when we start on time and when we have a few others joining as well, I'll share that remedy. Okay. So any questions till this point? Otherwise, we can end the meeting. Okay, so we don't have any questions, it seems. So thank you everyone for joining in. The recordings will be available tomorrow, or it should be available by today. It could be available by today as well, depending on the availability factors. And subscribe to the channel. I'll be posting new content almost every alternate day. So try to understand and apply those concepts to make your lives easy, because Vedic astrology is all about worshiping the sun. The more you practice astrology, the more your sun becomes better. Okay, this is a very important thing that people don't highlight it, but it's really a good remedy. In fact, the best remedy for the sun is to practice Vedic astrology. Okay, all right then. Thank you everyone for joining in. Hopefully we will start next week on time. Okay, I'll be on time next week. And sorry for whatever happened today in the very beginning. I was off by around 45 minutes. So thank you for bearing that out with me. All right. Namaste, everyone. I'll see you again next week. Om Gurave Namaha.